Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome. Pesachim Ayin Hey is today's daf. We have 2 lines from the top of the Amid. Ein tzol nesapes l'v'chulu. The Mishnah tells us we're meant to use a wooden spit during the roasting process of the Korban Pesach rather than a metal utensil, which conducts heat. The problem there is, since the portion of that metal rod exposed to the fire will receive heat and pass it on, conduct it further to the other side of this metal rod, the metal rod which was inserted into the Korban Pesach, in which case the animal will get roasted from the heat coming on that rod. It will not be a direct roasting through fire. It won't be tzli eish. Rather, it's going to get roasted machmas davar acher, through heat coming from another thing, not directly from fire. Therefore, you're not meant to use a metal spit or a grill. And then the Mishnah proceeds to describe a story where Rabbi Gamliel instructed Tavi, his servant, go out and prepare for us, roast our Korban Pesach al ha'askal on a grill. Says the Gemara, Masa Lister. Is a story here meant to contradict the halacha that we just learned? How is he using a metal grill? The Mishnah is meant to be learned as though it's missing some words, and this is how you learn it. Yeah, you're not meant to use a metal utensil, but v'im askel menukeves mutar. If it's a perforated grill that has a empty space between those rods through which you can hang the Korban Pesach, which will not come into contact with the metal portion of this grill, then there's no concern. Mutar, you could even use this grill during the grilling process. Va'amar Rabbi Tzadok, in fact, it was a story. Rabbi Tzadok says, Ma'aseh Bar Gamliel, she'amar l'Tavi Avdoi, who instructed his Eved, Tzei yutzlei lanos ha'pesach alas iskala, ala askala minu keves. In fact, he used this type of grill because it was an askala minu keves, with a gap between those rods, through which he hung the Korban Pesach. Bo minei Rav Chinana bar Idi marav Ada bar Ava. Rav Chinana bar Idi asked the following question of Rav Ada bar Ava. We learned earlier on Daf Chavav is a Shitas Rebbe who holds that since we know that not only are the early fruit asur ba'ana, in fact even the peels which can be used for firewood, they are also asur ba'ana. And Rebbe says if you go ahead and use klipe erla as firewood, and you go ahead and you bake a loaf of bread using that type of firewood, that bread is asur bahana, because the shvach eitzim, the benefit coming from that wood, from that firewood, is nikar pas, is visible, is discernible in the final product, in the pas in this bread, and therefore it's asur bahana. The question is as follows: you have a tanur, an oven she'sikoi beklipi arla, which was heated with arla firewood, arla peels, v'garfai. But then they raked the firewood out of the oven. So you don't have the source of fire, you don't have the arla material. Rather, you only have the residual heat, the remaining heat, which the firewood generated. You have a hot oven, but no firewood, no arla. Va'afa bayasapas, and used this hot oven to bake bread. According to the shita that says baking using arla firewood is asur, that's shitas Rebbe. Mahu, what will be in this case, where you don't actually have any eitzim intact? You only have the heat which was generated and created by that arla. Armalei hapas mutaris. So he responded, certainly it's mutar. There's no concern here because you're not directly having enough from any arla. All you have is heat, and therefore it's mutar. Armalei. So he responded, how can you say that it's just so simple that it's mutar? Va'amar Rav Chinna Saba. This was his name. He said in the name of Amar of Asi, who said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Tanur shi sikoi. If one heated an oven, v'garfai, and then he raked he cleared out the firewood, and all you had is a blazing hot oven. V'tzola bayasa Pesach, and you roasted the Pesach in that oven. You have lots of heat. You have a derivative of fire. You don't actually have the fire itself. Ein zet tzliesh. That's not called tzliesh, and this Pesach is not kosher. Why? Shenamat tzliesh shtei pa'amim. Because the Torah repeats itself and says the word tzliesh twice to indicate you need to have a roasting process using fire itself. It needs to be directly roasted through fire. You can't just use heat coming from fire. So that's halacha in the name of Rabbi Yehuda regarding Korban Pesach. The fact that we need a pasuk for that, tzliesh twice, to indicate that this is not called, this is not enough direct, and therefore it's no good for the Korban Pesach, doesn't that indicate that all over, everywhere else, we don't have this special pasuk? That's considered, even this is considered, even using just the remaining heat, is considered a roasting process. It's considered as though you roasted and cooked and baked using that fire, which generated this heat. Tama de Galer Rachmana tzliesh shtei pa'amim. We only say this because the Torah revealed and repeated by saying tzliesh twice that this process is not suitable for the Korban Pesach. It's not called a direct use. You're not directly using that fire, which is no longer present. But otherwise, had the Torah not expressed itself in this way, meaning all over, everywhere else except for Korban Pesach, Hava Amina, yeah, I would think, I would contemplate that tzlieshu, this is also considered tzliesh. Even though there's no real fire intact, there's no firewood, and there's no fire, you have just the intense heat generated by the fire that was formerly here. That's also called tzliesh. Therefore, getting back to Arla, which generated fire, which generated heat, even if you already raked out the Arla, you've gotten rid of the original firewood and the fire, all you have is heat, intense heat in this fire, using that to bake bread should be also, because you're having anah from the original fire. Amar Lacey responded, no, Gali Rachmana Hasam, actually, once the Torah was megala, demonstrated by Korban Pesach, that this type of baking or grilling or roasting process is considered only indirectly using that fire. The fact is you can't use it for Korban Pesach. Gali Rachmana Hasam, Torah reveals it over there, Yafinu Mina, and we can apply it to elsewhere as well. The Torah is coming to teach us a lesson that's universal. Unless you actually have the fire in front of you and you're directly using that fire, roasting off that fire, baking off that fire, unless you're doing that, it's not considered a shimush of that fire, even though this heat was generated through fire. And therefore, when it comes to other halachas as well, including Arla, there's no concern. Another pshat, another answer to this kasha. How can we just take it for granted that by Arla, once the Arla and the fire has been removed, using its heat is not considered? How can you say that if we find that we need a pasuk to teach us this halacha by Korban Pesach, which perhaps sounds like elsewhere you wouldn't apply this chiddush, and it would be considered a direct use of fire? Another teretz would be Hasam Tama de Kas Rachmana Tzliesh Shtei Pa'amim. It's only there by Korban Pesach that we need that pasuk, that we only conclude as such. We only do not consider the Korban Pesach as tzliesh because we have twice tzliesh. Haloi Kas Rachmana Tzliesh Shtei Pa'amim. But had the Torah not written tzliesh twice, Havamina, I would say, Aish Kabed Rachmana. The Torah is particular, is makbid about roasting a Korban Pesach using fire. Now, what constitutes fire? Afilu garfei nami tzlieshu. Even if it was raked out, you no longer have the origin, the source of the fire. You only have the heat, the todaseish. Afilu garfei nami. Perhaps I would say tzlieshu. It's still tzliesh. And Rashi points out, because the Chaim Hatanor is Toldas Eshu. It's a derivative of fire. For instance, Rashi says you take a beged and have it come into contact with the walls, the very hot walls of this fire, of this oven. It's going to catch fire. So you see there's some fire embedded, there's some intense heat embedded in this wall, which is still considered somewhat fire. So perhaps by Korban Pesach, where the stipulation is tzliesh, it needs to be a roasting from using fire. Perhaps this is also considered somewhat a version of fire. And that's why you need a pasuk to instruct us otherwise. Tzliesh, shtei pam, and tell you, no, this type of weakened fire is not adequate, is not sufficient to produce tzliesh. So that's why you need a pasuk there. Avalacha, but over here when it comes to Arla, there's no need to even have a pasuk. It's so simple. Eitzim di surah k'kavod rachmana. What are we concerned about? The Torah is makbid about the eitzim of Isser. Well, let's know. Where do you have the eitzim? They're gone. They've been raked out of the oven. So that's why by Korban Pesach, you need a pasuk there. The point is, we need tzliesh. Perhaps this is also tzliesh. Pasuk has to tell you, no, this is not considered tzliesh. But by Arla, it's pashut. We can figure it out on our own, without a pasuk. Because what's aser? It's not the fire, it's the Arla wood which is aser. The Eish itself is not a concern. That's not Isser Hana. Isser Hana is already gone. Has already been consumed and incinerated. Therefore, he responded earlier that it's Pasha, that it's Mutter. Once the original, the firewood and the fire with it was raked out of the oven. So in summary, we learned that a oven which was cleared of its firewood, and all you have is a hot oven, the choim ha'esh embedded in the walls of this oven. We learned that regarding Korban Pesach, it's not suitable, it's not called tzliesh. And the reason is because the Torah says tzliesh twice to indicate you need to have actual fire present. You need to be directly using that fire, but if it's just hilodas ha'esh, heat which was sourced from in a fire, that's not considered tzliesh. And as we learned regarding Arla, that once the Arla wood has been removed, even though you have the effect of that Arla wood, that's not considered Isser Hana. Now what about using coals? Is that considered Eish regarding Korban Pesach, regarding Arla Halacha? The Gemara will go into it now. Tana Rabban. Chotchoy. Suppose he chopped up the Korban Pesach, and placed it on top of coals. Rabbi Omer ani, I say shezet tzliesh. That's called tzliesh. Even coals, we're speaking about flickering coals which are alive. The Gemara soon will call them whispering coals. The Parsha will explain they're alive to the point that if you stick a splinter there, it will catch fire. So that's another version of fire. Therefore, says Rebbe, it's pasha, it's simple to me that this type of roasting is called tzliesh. Ramalei Rav Achadvoi Barami l'Rav Chisda. So he asked the kasha to Rav Chisda. Mi amar Rebbe Gechalim eish ninu. Is that so that according to Rebbe, Gechalim are considered eish? V'raminu, we have a kasha from the halacha regarding nega. There's a nega called shchin, a nega called michva. Shchin is where you find a blotch on a piece of skin which was bruised, but the heat which caused that bruise was not fire related. It was hit, it was slapped. That's called shchin. Michva, on the other hand, is a mark which was produced using heat of fire. It was burnt using fire heat. So we have a brayso like this. Michvas eish. The pasuk says that if there will be a nega called michvas eish, then it has its halachis, which is different than shchin. And the shchin and michva not mitzvah, two different categories of nega. Michvas eish, ainly ela shenichva beish. Perhaps this only would refer to a fellow who was burnt through fire, directly through fire. Nichva begacheles. What if he was burnt with a coal? Beremetz. hot ashes, b'sidrei seach, through hot lime, begufsis reseach, hot gypsum, some type of plaster, v'chol davar abo min ha'or. And likewise, anything which was heated through fire. So it's fire heat. L'isui chame or, to include boiling water. Minayin, how do we know that all these items can generate a mikvah? Since they're fire related. Chame or is another example. It was boiled using heat of fire. Talmud lema mikvah. Torah repeats mikvah twice. Riba, to be rabba, all these given cases. Doesn't dafka have to be fire. Anything which is fire related. Tama de Rabbi Rachmana mikvah. Apparently it's only because we have that riba that we choose to include all these cases, including the gecholim. Holy Rabbi Rachmana mikvah. But had the Torah not been marba, not repeated mikvah, I would say gecholim lavesh ninu. Then only fire itself can create a mikvah, but any heat which is sourced in fire, for instance gecholim, which is on the list in this brisa, is not considered eish. So why is it that Rebbe just assumes, takes for granted that even gachalei eish are considered eish with respect to Korban Pesach? We see that when it comes to nega, you need a special rebbe for that. Apparently, it's not considered, it's not classified as fire. Omar lei, so he responded, gachelas shel eish shel eitz lo isra kroler bui. The truth is that if it's a wooden coal, a wood coal, of course there's no need to have a pasuk. A piece of wood is flammable, it gets incinerated, the fire embedded in it is really considered fire. It's just simply holding that fire. Of course, without a pasuk, we would know that constitutes fire. And that's what Rebbe was speaking about. Roasting Korban Pesach using wooden coals. Ki isra kra. For what do we need a pasuk? That pasuk by the nega, ligachel shel mateches. If he chooses to use metal coals, which are not really flammable, they don't get incinerated and consumed by fire. So if we have this red hot metal coal, it's different than a wooden coal. It's true, it's very hot, but perhaps that wouldn't be considered true fire. So therefore, by Korban Pesach, it's not considered fire. It's only by the nega we have a special pasuk to be marba, even this type of gechelos, because at the end of the day, it's fire heat that's embedded there. Therefore, it's considered mikvah. Says the Rabbi Chom Shema Techas Lav Eshu. Do you mean to say that metal coals are not considered ish? V'ogabi bas koyin. In the case of punishing a bas koyin who was mezana, she gets sreif. Dichsiv ba'esh tisarif. The pasuk says, ba'esh, she gets burnt. V'amar of masna. How would they go about this? Psilo shel aver hayoisna. They would heat up a piece of lead and pour it into her mouth. So that's how they would accomplish the streifa here. So what do we see? That even hot, boiling metal is considered fire. Shani Hasam, there it's different. Amakra, Ba'esh Tisarif. The Torah could have simply said Ba'esh Tamas. Why Ba'esh Tisarif? L'Rabbi is called Sreifos Habois Mneish. It's coming to include all types of burnings which originate in fire. Meaning, as long as they're using fire heat in any form, it's considered Sreifa in this context of a Bas Kohen because we have that reboot. But for instance, when it comes to Korban Pesach, we won't necessarily say that a metal coal is considered Eish. Continues the Gemara. V'koshkein eitz atzma, Eish atzma. So B'Eish Tisarif tells you can use all forms of fire and heat, which come from Eish. So certainly, fire itself is suitable. If that's the case, so why go through this entire process? Take lead, cook it up, pour it. V'nakiv l'chavil is meiris. Let's just surround it with bundles of branches. V'naklan, let's burn it in that way. Says the Gemara, Asya Streifa b'nei Aaron. The reason why we don't do that is because we learn Exer Shava Streifa from the b'nei Aaron, not the Vaviyu. Ma'alahalan, just as over there, we know that it wasn't a an external fire that burnt them. Rather, the Gemara in Sanhedrin describes two chutin, two threads, so to speak, of fire that entered their nostrils. It was an internal burning process. So you apply that here as well. Mala halon streifas neshama v'guf kaim, just as over there. It was a streifas neshama, an internal streifa, but the guf was still intact. Afkan here as well. When it comes to the einish of streifas neshama v'guf kaim, Torah meant to do an internal streifa, but leave the guf intact. V'nabelo chameor. Why do you insist on using metal? Why can't you just take boiling water? Mishum de Rav Nachman, on account of Rav Nachman, Rav Nachman, Omakro. The Torah says, in all cases, even when treating somebody who needs to be punished through Bezdin, v'afterach kamaycha, b'ror lo misa yafa, choose a preferable misa, one which is quick and less painful and respectful. And therefore, we don't use boiling water. Some explain because it has that bubbling effect inside. It's disrespectful. Therefore, we choose molten metal. Okay, once we have Rav Nachman, they're meant to choose the misa yafa, the most preferred, the quickest and least painful death. So then we could just figure out on our own that we're not meant to make this bonfire on the person, which is very painful. Rather, we meant to do it quickly and efficiently using an internal method. So why do we need the Gzeir Shava from Bnei Aaron to teach us that it's meant to be an internal streifa? We already know that from Rav Nachman. Amri, they answered like this: Ilav Gzeir Shava, because if not for that Gzeir Shava, we wouldn't know. Hava Mina, we would say, Streifas Neshama V'Guf Kayam. That type of internal streifa, Allah streifa, that doesn't constitute streifa. That's not really an option. V'Yemeshum de Rav Nachman, and how we're going to fulfill Rav Nachman's mandate. You can't do an internal job, rather do it externally but quickly. Add many bundles of firewood there. Thomas Bagola said she dies quickly. So perhaps that's how you're going to fulfill Rav Nachman's mandate. Do it quickly and efficiently. But certainly you have to do an external streifa. You can't do an internal streifa. Streifa is neshama guf kaim kamashmon. That's why we have that Gzeir Shava, where we bring over the concept for Bnei Aaron, that even an internal streifa is considered a streifa. And that's what the Torah wants when it comes to the Einish Bezdin. Now, once we know the Torah wants an internal streifa, what type, what variety? We choose the most respectful and most efficient and expedited manner. Says the Gemara, once you've included all types of streifas, all types of heat, the Torah says, Ba'esh tisaref. Why Ba'esh? Just say tisaref. Because the Torah insists on having heat of a fire. The origin has to be fire. Sure, now it could be molten metal, but it has to be heat coming from fire. As opposed to lead, which is naturally hot. At the time of mining, it's very naturally hot, but that's not heat coming from a fire. And that cannot be used. So the conclusion is, when it comes to a bas kohen, all forms of streifa, internal streifa, are acceptable, provided it's after a kamoicha, it's quick, it's efficient, respectful and less painful. All types of heat are mutter, provided they're heat sourced in a fire. Well, so the Gemara, Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah or Bezeira. Do you mean to say whenever we have these two terms, Be'esh Tesarf, L'Rabbis Kol Streifas, Habois Machmas Eish, is it going to include all varieties of streifa whose origin is in fire? L'Rabbis Kol Streifas, Habois Machmas Eishu? We have an example which indicates otherwise. Val Gabi Purim Manisraf. You have the karbonates which are meant to be burnt. The Par Koyim Mashiach, Paralel Davishal Tzibur. They're meant to be burnt outside Yerushalayim. Dechsibuhu. What does the pasuk say? V'saraf oisei al eitzim ba'esh. So we have v'saraf and ba'esh, and still we find limitations. V'tanya ba'esh v'loy b'sidrei seyach. You must use fire while burning these carbonates. You cannot use boiling lime. V'loy b'gaf sidrei seyach, this type of hot plaster. Amar Leisi responded, yeah, how could you compare? Hasam ksiv ba'esh v'hadar tisaraf. by the Bas Kohen, discussed earlier. The pasuk says Be'esh and follows with Tisarif, which indicates that I don't want it limited to Be'esh. L'Rabbi's kol streifas habois machmas eish, coming to include all types of streifas which originate in fire. However, by Purim and Esrafim, the pasuk employs a different term. V'sarav oisal eitzim ba'eish. V'sarav comes first, and eish is last. Eish l'basoif. L'basoif eish. At the end, you have the word eish. L'meimra, which is coming to tell us the eish in. Yeah, you can use fire, midachin, but not other forms of heat. So the last word comes to explain the previous word. V'sarav, and the pasuk includes ba'esh. What type of streifa? Ba'esh. It's very specific and limited. And therefore, we limit it to actual fire, as opposed to the halacha of the streifa bas kohen, where the pasuk reverses it. Ba'esh tisarif. Tisarif is a ribui. All types of streif. Says in Hasam Nami by the Purim as well, it says, Hasam Nami ksivik streifel b'soif. The pasuk concludes with the word streifa. Because the pasuk says, "V'sarav oisal eitzim ba'esh al shefach hadeshen yisarev." Right? The al shefach hadeshen yisarev. The fact that the pasuk includes al shefach hadeshen yisarev, the word yisarev, indicates that we're coming to remember all forms of streifa. So why are you limiting it to eish in specific? Amri said, they answered, "Hahu yisarev." That reference to yisarev we need for another halacha. Meboilek sanya, either for the following price. Yisarev is coming to teach us Afal Bish Einsham Deshen Yisrael. Afal Bish Einsham Deshen. Although the pasuk sounds like it wants us to burn the Purim al Shefech Hadoshen, where the Deshen was poured, the ashes of the Mizbeach were poured out. So perhaps if there are no ashes present, you can't do the streifa. No. Yisarev Afal Bish Einsham Deshen, even though presently there's no Deshen there, you can still go ahead and burn the Purim, as long as you have the mokaim of Deshen. What else do we learn? Yisarev afal b'shehitzis ha'urbaruba. Even though most of the par already caught fire, that's not enough. You have to tend to it until the entire par gets burnt. So if that's the case, Yisarev is no longer available to teach us that all forms of heat and fire can be employed when burning the Purim and Esrafim. So at this point in the Gemara, we learned that a gacheles shel eitz, wooden coals, are considered eish when it comes to Karim Pesach, when it comes to other halachis. It's only the gacheles shel mateches, which isn't really an eish, or other forms of heat derivatives, things which were boiled by fire, but nevertheless not fire itself. Then we have a discussion. When it comes to Karban Pesach, that's not called Sliesh. And when it comes to Purim and Esrafim as well, we can't use that. But by Nega, by Bas Kohen, we have special psukim, which include even those forms of heat. Ravina Omar, let's go back to the original Kasha. Rebbe told us a chiddush. Roasting a Karban Pesach on Gecholim constitutes Sliesh. Tomorrow Kasha. We have a brisa which tells us that by nega, the nega of michva, coming as a result of a burn, the pasuk says michvas eish. Ainli ella, perhaps this only works if it's a michvas eish directly from fire. But suppose he was burnt through a gacheles, through hot ashes, etc. Perhaps that's not called michvas eish. The Gemara has a riboy, michva, that repetition, which will include even those cases of fire derivatives. The kasha was, well, Rebbe just told us that gacheles is just by default considered eish. We don't need a pasuk for that. Why then does the brisa insist on bringing a pasuk to include a coal, which perhaps indicates that a coal isn't so simple? It isn't necessarily considered eish. Ravina is going to come to answer and address that question. Ravina Amar, we have to relearn that brisa. Let's wrap it. bundle together and then learn the Brisa. Meaning like this. The Brisa begins. Michvas Eish. The pasuk indicates it has to be a burn of fire. Einli ella shenichva be'eish ubegacheles. So you meant to bundle together fire and coals. Perhaps Michvas Eish is only referring to a person who was burnt via fire or a coal. Because a coal is certainly classified as fire. So you put the comma there. This certainly is compatible with Rebbe, who equates a coal with fire. So Ravina already answered the kasha. And then the Brisa continues. What about other types of tolas eish? Nichve beremetz. Suppose he was burnt through hot ashes, besidrei seach, bukafisrei seach, b'chal davar ba machmasor. Anything which has this fire heat embedded in it, or boiling water, minayin, how do you know that also is considered michvas eish? Tamalem michva riba. For that we need a pasuk. But when it comes to fire or a coal, which is also considered another variation of fire, you don't need a pasuk for that. That we take for granted. It's considered fire, and therefore Rebbe works. Rebbe who said that roasting Korban Pesach on a coal is perfectly fine because that's called tzliesh. It's perfectly compatible with this price. So in conclusion, we have 4 different categories of fire. We have pure fire H, which certainly works when it comes to either Pesach, which requires tzliesh, or the Purim hanisrafim, where the Torah says v'sorav and ba'esh. Certainly when it comes to the michvas eish, that nega, which needs to be as a result of a burn, the nega on the skin which was burnt by eish. And likewise, regarding the streifa of a bas kohen, the same thing applies to gechalim, wooden coals which are leichashayt, are active and flickering. It applies to all 4 cases. What about something which contains the chayma eish, contains heat coming from a fire, which is embedded in it? It's not the fire itself, it's not a coal, hot ashes, etc. When it comes to Korban Pesach, which needs tzliesh, that's not suitable. Likewise, by Purim hanisrafim, you can't use that type of fire, that type of heat. However, when it comes to a mikvah, we have a special pasuk which allows that as well. And the same thing regarding a bas kohen. All agree, just plain heat, natural heat, not fire related, is certainly unsuitable in all 4 circumstances. Continues the Gemara. Rava asks a stira, a kasha. Mi amar Rebbe Yechal mikreish. Is that so that Rebbe maintains that coals, wooden, active, flickering coals are considered eish? V'ramini, we have a kasha from a brisa gachale. The pasuk here is describing the kohen gadol on Yom Kippur. V'lokach milay hamachta. He would take a machta full of gachale eish, burning coals and meyal hamizbeach from the outer mizbeach, and then bring it into the kodesh hakadoshim, where he would use it for the ketores on Yom Kippur. The pasuk says gachale eish. Says the Brisa. Let's analyze the pasuk. Gachale. Had the pasuk only used the term gachale, I would say yochal oimais. Perhaps you can use even dormant coals which aren't flickering, smoldering coals. Tamaloima eish. That's why the pasuk adds the word eish, gachale eish, to indicate you need to have flickering, active coals, fiery coals. Now, eish, had the pasuk only used the word eish without gachale, yachal shalevet, perhaps that would mean a fire, a flame, and not coals. Tamalem gachale. That's why the pasuk adds the words gachale. Gachale eish. Okay, so what does this mean? Maybe min haleichashis. He's meant to take burning active coals. Gachale eish, fiery coals. So these are the words of the Brisa. Before we present the kasha on Rebbe, let's first just analyze try to understand the words of this Brisa. How good for kasha? Take a closer look at the words. The Brisa itself is inherently difficult. It's hard to understand the words. Amras gachale yochal oimamos. You begin by saying, had the pasuk only used the word gachale, perhaps that would indicate that you meant to take coals which are smoldering coals, inactive coals, dormant coals, but not active, flickering coals. Alma loichasheis eishnenu. That indicates that active coals, flickering coals, are considered eish. They're not called gachale, they're called eish. So if the pasuk would only have said gachale, it would indicate an active, dormant coals, because gecholim leichashes, they're called eish. Amal leichashes, eish ninu. So active coals are described with the word eish. That's the first part of the Bryce. Fine. Amos Sefer. Let's proceed. The Bryce continued. Eish. Had the pasuk only have said the word eish, Yachal Shalevis, perhaps that would indicate he to have a flame, a fire, and not flickering coals. Apparently, this point of the Bryce here holds that flickering coals, gecholim leichashes, don't constitute eish. Only Shalevis, a true flame, a fire, is called eish. So again, eish yachal shalevis. Had the pasuk only said eish, perhaps that would indicate you have to bring a flame. Tamalami gachle. That's why the pasuk adds the word gachle to indicate you don't have to have a flame. Alma. Apparently, this part of the Bryce holds afilu leichashes lav eish ninu. And even flickering, active coals are not called eish. If the pasuk only would have said eish, I would say it's a shalheves, not gecholim leichashes. A minute ago you just said that if the pasuk would have said gachale, I would say you need to have dormant, inactive coals, because apparently active coals, fiery coals, are called eish. So gachale would indicate gecholim oimemois, not gecholim leichashes, which are considered eish. And then you say, well, if the pasuk would only have said eish, that would indicate a shalheves, which implies that gecholim leichashes are not called eish. So which way is it? Are active flickering coals considered eish or not? This is a steer within the Bryce. Amar Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes came and he explained the Bryce. Hachik Tani, this is what the Bryce means to say. Had the pasuk only have said gachale, yochel bein oimemois bein leichashes, that would indicate either or. You have a choice. Any type of coals, whether dormant or active. Tamulayma eish. That's why the pasuk adds the word eish, to indicate that you need to have active, fiery coals. But certainly, even fiery coals constitute eish, which is compatible with Rebbe who said you can roast your korban Pesach on active coals. That's all the Bryce meant to say. The word gachli would indicate a choice. You have an option. Whether you'd like, you can bring the ayumais or the leichashes. Either way, you've brought gechalim. Talmud loyma eish. That's why the pasuk adds the word eish to say no. You need to have fire coals specifically, the gechalim leichashes. Now, eish. So why doesn't the pasuk simply say eish? Because if that would be the case, eish, if only eish would be said, yochel shal heves, that would indicate you have to bring a flame, the fire itself. Talmud loyma gachale. That's why the pasuk says gachale eish, to indicate you don't bring a shalhevis, you bring coals. Hakate said, how does this work? Maybe min aloichashes. Gachale eish indicates that you need to have gecholim loichashes. So it's gecholim, but active gecholim, which are considered gachale eish. In any case, what do we see? Mikol makom gecholim leikru eish. So we see from this brisa that the word eish itself does not indicate coals, because, as Rav Sheshes explained, the brisa was saying it's only because we have the word gachal eish together with eish, which indicates fiery coals. You no longer have a choice what type of gecholim to use, dormant or active. You need to have gachal eish. But the brisa clearly says, had the pasuk only have said the word eish, that would indicate a shalheves. And that's why we need gachal eish, which is a reference to fiery coals. Apparently, the word of eish, the word eish itself, doesn't indicate. It's not a reference to gecholim, as fiery as they may be. They're not considered eish. Mikol makom gecholim lo yikri eish. Kasha l'Rebbe. There's a kasha to Rabbi who told us that you can roast your korban Pesach on burning coals. That's called eish. Amar Abaye Tritzach. Says Abaye, let's learn and interpret the brisa as follows. The brisa begins, Gachale, had the pasuk only have said the word gachale, yochel oimemois v'loy lechashos. That would indicate dormant coals, not active coals. Talmud lema eish. That's why the pasuk adds eish, gachale eish, to indicate that you need to have something fiery here. Fiery coals. Because eish is a reference to fiery coals, like Rebbe. The Brisa continues, I eish. Had the pasuk only mentioned the word eish, yochel rotza shall have a yavi, rotza gechelasav. If the pasuk would have only said eish, perhaps the Torah is providing a choice, giving you two options. If you want, you can bring a shalheves, which is true fire, or if you want, you can bring a fiery coal. Because both are included in the word eish. Talmud lema gachale. That's why the pasuk insists on gachale. Haketa. What does the pasuk mean to say? Maybe even a loichashes. He meant to bring gachale eish. Fiery coals, not a shalheves. So according to Abaye, we answer the kasha. Because the word gachale would indicate, the word eish would indicate that even fiery coals are okay. And this is in line with Rabbi, that fiery coals are considered eish. So again, according to Abaye, the Brisa means like this. The pasuk would only have said the word gachale. I would say any type of coal, whether dormant or active. The pasuk continues, eish, to indicate you have to have active coals. Because indeed the word eish is a reference to active coals as well, as Rebbe said. If the pasuk would have only said eish, I would say, you have a choice. You can bring either active coals or even just a flame. That's why the pasuk joins gachali with eish to indicate you have only one option, fiery coals. But in any case, we answer the kasha on Rebbe, because certainly the word eish on its own would also be a reference to fiery coals. Omar Rabba, son of a Rabba, he takes issue with this option. Just one point he takes issue with. You say if it would say eish, then the Torah is providing an option. You can bring either burning coals or just a plain flame. How's that possible? Ratza, if he wishes, gachelas yavi, he can bring a coal. Ratza, if he wishes, shalheves yavi, he could just come in with a flame. Shalheves, beloy gachelas, hechem eshkachsla. How do you have a flame without a coal? Just a flame in the air? Kigoin, apparently, it's going to be brought in the following manner. Kigoin, the shafye lemana mishcha, he smeared lemana, the utensil mishcha, with oil. Ve'itl be'nurani, hung a fire flame, he caught a flame onto that oil, and that's how he's going to enter the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Hahu, lamali kroli muti. Why do we even need a pasuk to exclude that? That's inappropriate. Hashtal lefnei melach, basar v'dam ein oisin kain. Look, that's something that you wouldn't even do in front of a king of flesh and blood. Lefnei melech, bas malchem lochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu lekol shkein. Of course, in front of Hashem, it's inappropriate to bring in this smoking flame. Apparently, the pasuk was never really offering you that option. Elam arava tritzachi. Interpret the Brisa like this. We begin gechale. The pasuk would just say lokach gachale, just referring to coals. Yochal oimemois b'loich echashes. Perhaps that would indicate bring in dormant, inactive coals, not active coals. Talmud loymar eish. That's why the pasuk adds gachale eish to indicate fiery coals. I eish. Conversely, had the pasuk only used the word eish, perhaps that would lead us to think as follows. Not come in either with fire or active coals like Abaye learned. Rather like this. It means like this. He would take a block of wood from the Mizbech HaChitzon, which was half coal and half flame. So it was partially already a coal, and the other part had a active flame burning on it. But that's when he removed it from the Mizbeach. But that would soon change at the Eil Gavoy, because by the time he gets inside to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, certainly the entire thing would become coal, in which case it would be something respectful. But the Hava Amina would be that perhaps at the point of removal from the Mizbeach HaChitzon, he's meant to take Eish. So if the pasuk would only say Eish, it would indicate bring all elements of Eish, an actual flame and an active coal, because both can be referred to with the term Eish. That would be the Hava Amina. Talmud Loima, that's what the pasuk says, V'lokach malei hamachta gachal Eish mi'al Mizbeach, to indicate Mish'as lekicha nahavi gecholim. from the point of removal. It's meant to be gachalei eish. Meant to have strictly flickering coals. Forget about the flame. Mishas lekicha, it's meant to be gachalei eish. An active fiery coal, but no flame included. So Rava tweaked it a bit. The Havamina would have been to bring something which is partially cold, partially flame from the Mizbech HaChitzin. And by the time you get inside, it's completely cold. The Chiddush is no. You're meant to remove a fiery coal, gachali eish, active fiery coals from the Mizbech HaChitzin. But in any case, according to both Abaye and Rava, this price is fully compatible with Rebbe, who holds that Tzli Eish by Korban Pesach certainly includes Gecholim, Gachali Eish, these active coals. So we learned about Gecholim Loichashois, these active flickering coals, and also Gecholim Oimemois, the dormant, quiet, inactive coals. Now how do we spell Oimemois with an Ayin or Aleph? Iboilu. Oimemois with an Aleph, Oimemois with an Ayin. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. We have a pasuk describing Chiram, the king of Tzur, who was Noe, Rashi says, he had a nice appearance, and the pasuk says, Arazim loy amamu. The cedars didn't dampen his appearance, began alakim in the garden of Hashem. So you see a dampening and being dormant is referred to with the word amamu with an ayin. So gecholim oimamois, inactive, dampened coals, are described as gecholim oimamois with an ayin. Continues the Mishnah. Now that we know the Korban Pesach needs to be tzli eish, what happens if noga becheres shel tanur? The Korban Pesach came into contact with the cheres wall of the hot oven. That surface, which touched the oven, now was roasted as a result of the heat embedded in the oven, which is not tzli eish. Certainly, it's a heat derivative. It's todas eish. It's coming from fire. It's sourced in eish, but it's not actually directly getting roasted through fire. So that surface is puzzle. Yiklef he has to remove, he has to peel off that outer layer. Next case is notaf miroi tfeil acheres. Suppose some of the gravy, some of the fat of the carbon dripped onto the wall of the oven, this hot wall, which now cooked up that fat, v'chazer elav, and that bounced. The fat bounced back onto the carbon and got absorbed in the carbon. Now that fat is puzzle because it's not liyesh. He told us Mekayma, he has to remove that place. Peeling is not enough. He told me he has to remove a more significant, a thicker piece of flesh. The Mepharshim say it's a roich of etzba, fingers, width of a finger. Notal miroit boyala soilis. Suppose some of that gravy dripped down on soilis, this type of grain, this type of flour which was cooking in the oven. Some of the gravy of the Korban Pesach dripped into the soilis. Now in turn, the soilis cooked up that gravy. So again, we have gravy which is non-etzliyesh yikmoites mekoymai. Here he has to remove a whole scoop, a whole handful of that soilis, because the gravy spreads easily in that cereal, and that gravy is puzzle. So 3 examples: either peel off the surface, yitos mekoymai, take a bit more, or yikmoitz, he has to scoop out a large amount. Continues the Mishnah. Sachay b'shem and truma. Suppose he chose to smear his Korban Pesach using truma oil. Im chaburas kohanim yechelu. So if he has a group full of kohanim, there's no problem; they can eat it. Now the chiddush, by the way, is that you could even smear the Korban Pesach with oil prior to roasting. Just that bit of moisture does not interfere with the roasting process. It's not called mevushal. So a slight smear is okay, and if it's truma, well, if you have kohanim, go ahead. Im shel Yisrael. However, if you have a group of Yisraelim who cannot eat truma, then we have a problem. Im chayu, if the carbon is still raw, yedechenu, simply rinse it off, remove the shemesh shel truma. Im tzolihu, if it's roasted, yiklef es achitza. Now he has to go ahead and peel off the outer layer, which contains the truma oil. Now Tosfos points out a chiddush that even if it's after roasting, not only if it was there during the roasting process did it absorb the shemesh or truma and has to be peeled off, but even if it was already after the roasting process and already cooled off, Says Tosfos, you have to go ahead and peel off the outer layer. Rinsing is not enough because the roasting process softens the meat, which allows it to absorb. Concludes the Mishnah, Soche b'shemesh Maaseh Sheni. What if he smears his Korban Pesach using Maaseh Sheni oil? Lo yasenu domim al bnei chabura. He can't charge the bnei chabura for that Maaseh Sheni oil. Why? Shein poidem Maaseh Sheni b'Yerushalayim. You're not meant to redeem Maaseh Sheni in Yerushalayim. And this is a form of redemption. Taking money for the Maaseh Sheni, you're not meant to do that in Yerushalayim. Let's take a look at Rashi here. So Rashi is at the third wide line. Masnisin. Noga becherse shel tanur. Says Rashi, Noga Pesach becherse shel tanur. Touch the surface of the tanur. Yikleif, he has to peel off mina Pesach. Mokim shenoga b'tanur, the point of contact. Why? Because the Farsh Gemara, as the Gemara explains, shenizbashal sham mechoyma tanur, because that point of contact got heated from the heat embedded in the wall of the tanur. V'lo yitzli'eshu. Because the Gemara earlier explained that once you raked the fire, the coals out of the oven, that remaining heat, even though it's sourced in fire, but it's only heat, it's a teilod of eish. That's not called tzli-eish. Mishum shenemat tzli-eish, tzli-eish nei pa'amim. We have that riboy to tell us, l'mu'utei taner shegrarfa, a taner which was raked, v'cheres atfanis garfa imadu, says Rashi. Just as a raked oven is unsuitable, well, the walls of the oven, even though you have fire on the floor, but the walls of the oven are embedded with fire, with heat. And that's non-eish heat. That heat's already embedded, inserted in the wall of the oven. That's not called tzli-eish. The next case was notaf. Notaf betanur miroitav al acheres. So some of the roitav, the gravy, the fat of the animal dripped on the cheres, v'chazar elav, and then bounced back. Shechazar shuman shenescham nacheres, v'nivel pesach. The shuman, which was heated through the cheres, went back and was absorbed in the pesach. Yitals mekayme. Here you have to take more. Just peeling is not enough. You have to take a more significant, a deeper cut of meat. The shuman nivla b'seichei, because fat gets absorbed deeply into the carbon. That fat is unsuitable. It was cooked via the cheres. Third case is notaf miroit valasolis. Some of the roitav dripped down into the solis. Speaking about boiling solis, and here again, the matvi roitva mechoyma solis. The roitav of the Pesach, which is meant to be tzli-eish, was cooked through the heat in the solis. It's getting cooked and roasted through something else. It can't be eaten. Why? You're only meant to eat the Korban Pesach tzli-eish. He has to scoop out that spot, and burn it. Kishar koshem sulam, just like koshem sulam are burnt. If he smeared Yishemesh or Truma on his Korban Pesach, imcha yidecheno, if it's still raw, just rinse it off. The leibalav, because it hadn't absorbed. But if it's tzli by klifa, then you have to peel off mishum the balav because it absorbed. What about Maaseh Sheni? You can't charge for it. A moicha Maaseh Sheni b'Yerushalayim, afilu oich l'sham b'kedusha. Even if you'll eat it properly in Yerushalayim, you can't charge for it. The chiyirbe mimcha haderech. Torah insists that pidyon can only take place when you're far away from Yerushalayim. But once you're in Yerushalayim, you can't go ahead and do this deal, charge for your Maaseh Sheni food. Let's make a quick chazar of today's daf. We discussed roasting Korban Pesach using coals, which according to Rebbe is perfectly fine. We have 4 categories of heat. Proper, true, pure eish is suitable in all circumstances. For a Pesach, for the Paraman Esrafim, for the Michva, type of nega, for the Streifas Baskoin. Likewise, Gecholim, Shal Eitz, which are loichashes, active, flickering coals, they are also considered in the same category as eish. What about something which has heat of fire embedded in it? It's not eish, it's not Gecholim, it's something which was boiled through fire. That's unsuitable for Pesach, or for the Paraman Esrafim. But that will work when it comes to the Nega, the Michva, or the Shefas Baskoyin, since we have Psukim to be Marber. When we have just plain heat, which is not derived from fire, that will be considered Eish in all circumstances. We conclude with a Mishnah, where the Korban Pesach came into contact with the wall of the oven. You have to peel off that top layer. You have some gravy which was heated through the wall of the oven, which was embedded back in the carbon. You have to remove a thicker layer. You have some gravy which was cooked inside that cereal. You have to scoop out a larger amount and go burn it. We had a Korban Pesach where he smeared it with Shemesh Truma. That's perfect for Kehanim. Shemesh Ma'aseh Sheni, that's also fine, provided he doesn't charge for it. Take care, not Tzlacha Rabbah.